A pleasant day to each and every one of us. I am Sophia Nover from Group 6 and I would like to introduce my group members. They are Barilea, Carnero, Dizon, Espidillion, Esterninos, Gutierrez, Oropesa, Orejana, and Palancia. Our topic is about the Transcendental hero, which is classified into 3 sections. To begin with, let us start in section 1, Life in Exile.
In this section, I'm going to discuss the life of Dr. Rizal while exiled in the Pitan. On June 29, 1892, when Dr. Rizal arrived to Manila, the Spanish authorities considered him as a threat because of his anti-friar and anti-Catholic writings, specifically his novel El Filibusterismo. The Spanish officials followed his every step, examining all of the houses he frequented and questioning people he knew. Regardless of this, on the night of July 3, 1892, at a house in Tondo, Rizal founded and inaugurated La Liga Filipina. La Liga Filipina is a social reformist group advocating social reforms through legal means. Unfortunately, on July 6, 1892, the Spanish government considered the La Liga Filipina a threat, which led to Rizal's arrest. Dr. Rizal was deported to the Pitan, a province in Zamboanga del Norte. The Spanish authorities sent him far away because they believed that sending Rizal to the Pitan would make his life miserable. But Rizal proved them wrong. Instead, being an exile was regarded as the most productive and fruitful years of his life. As a matter of fact, Rizal practiced medicine and scientific studies in the Pitan, and he also dedicated his time to serving the people through his civic works, education, and agricultural projects. Rizal became interested in local medicines and in the use of medical plants. In addition, while in the Pitan, he also became interested in studying the lifestyle, beliefs, and values of the cultural minorities. Dr. Rizal realized the importance of the people in the community since he was living with them, that they were important in the formation of national consciousness and they should not be excluded from the narrative of Philippine society.
Spaniards gave an offer to Rizal which to pardon him if he will retract the proclamation against the church, but Rizal did not yield. Jesuit priests put in a lot of effort to try to persuade Rizal in performing religious rites and submitting himself to confession. Rizal also engaged in different scholarly debates about religion with the Fray Pablo apostles. Lots of arguments are made which concerns to reconsidering his side against the church. The offer only heated the situation and revealed how much anti-church Rizal is. In this of his exile, he met Josephine Bracken. Now, Bracken was accompanying his foster father, which is George Topher, who had a severe case of cataract. They seek Rizal's help, and later on, Josephine Bracken and Rizal fell in love with each other. Basho, the head of the Katipunan, sent an emissary named Dr. Pio Valenzuela to ask Rizal about his opinion on the idea of an armed rebellion in order to gain the independence against the Spaniards. Rizal opposed the idea of an armed rebellion because he believed that the Filipinos are not yet united and not yet educated, and the Filipinos are not yet prepared to gain independence against the Spaniards.
Jose Rizal is considered one of the martyrs who gave their life in the attainment of Filipino rights and freedom. Jose Rizal, who was already well known for his nationalistic writings and activities during his lifetime, was executed for treason by the Spanish colonial government on December 30, 1896. His article serves in the inspiration of the Philippine Revolution against colonialism. Rizal's death was considered as an impactful episode in the Philippine history. This commemorates the nationalism and martyrdom of Rizal. His death was a statement of courage, not fear, love of country, not shame, pride of honor, not sedition. The big catharsis that made Filipinos one people in one nation, bringing dishonor to Spain's colonial rule. Rizal was presented with two kinds of evidence, documentary evidence and testimonials, which he could not refuse. He was put under interrogation without the benefit of knowing who testified against him. The letter he wrote to the propagandists and his family, as well as the letter he got from them, the poem *Kundiman*, and the Masonic documents Rizal's patriotic materials were among the documentary evidence.
So, testimonies against Rizal were given by Martin Constantino, Eduardo de Rosario, Jose Reyes, Moises Salvador, Jose Dizon, Domingo Franco, Deodato Arellano, Pio Valenzuela, Antonio Salazar, Francisco Quezon, and Timoteo Paez. So Rizal, however, did not know or had not met most of the people included in the list. So these evidence were endorsed by Colonel Olive to Governor Ramon Blanco, who designated Captain Rafael Dominguez as the judge advocate assigned with the task of deciding what corresponding action should be done. So he transmitted the records to Don Nicolas de la Peña, the judge advocate general, for an opinion. So Peña's recommendations to Rizal must immediately sent to trial. He must be held in prison under necessary securities. His properties must be issued with order of attachment, and as indemnity, Rizal had to pay 1 million pesos. And instead of a civilian lawyer, only an army officer is allowed to defend Rizal. So Rizal was immediately sent to trial and held in prison after the evidence were reviewed alongside his incarceration. His properties were seized as indemnity and he had to pay 1 million pesos, and just like I've said, instead of a civilian lawyer, an army officer, Luis Gabriel de Andrade represented Rizal in court. So here, one familiar name stood out, which is Lieutenant Luis Gabriel. Rizal discovered that the said lieutenant was the brother of Lieutenant Jose Gabriel de Andrade, who worked as Rizal's personal bodyguard in Calamba in 1887. So during the trial, Rizal defended himself when he said that he did not question the jurisdiction of the court, but he had nothing to admit on the charges against him, as well as on the declarations of the witnesses who testified against him. So on the 11th of December 1896, in the presence of his Spanish counsel, charges against Rizal were read. When asked regarding his sentiments or reactions on the charges, Rizal replied that he does not question the jurisdiction of the court and he has nothing to amend except that during his exile in the Piton in 1892, he had not dealt in political matters. He has nothing to admit on the charges against him. He had nothing to admit on the declarations of the witnesses. He had not met nor knew against him. What he only needed to clarify was the charge that he dealt with political matters while in exile. So despite all pleadings, the court voted for Rizal to be sentenced to death.
Rizal spent his 24 hours in his prison cell. During his last hours, he was visited by his family and wrote a letter to his second brother named Ferdinand Dumetrit.
Then, in the morning of December 30, 1896, Rizal set on his walk from Fort Santiago to Bagumbayan Square, where he eventually faced his death. Up to the last minute at Fort Santiago, Rizal defied orders from his captors, as he was instructed to face the sea and turn his back against the firing squad. But Rizal wanted to do otherwise. Instead, he faced the firing squad to show his innocence of the charges thrown at him. But the Spanish authorities forced him to face backwards and shot him at the back instead of the head. The shot at the back allowed him to turn his body sideways and fell on the ground with his face upward. Rizal's last word, as that of Jesus Christ, was "Consummatum est," meaning it is finished.
I'll be tackling the impact of Rizal's life and contributions to a person's outlook and to the Philippines itself. In here, we realize why Rizal is considered as a national hero. We are intended to learn after this are the following: discuss various reasons why Rizal is our national hero, know the relevance of Rizal as a national hero to the 21st century Filipinos. Before we start the discussion, let us define the meaning of transcendental. Transcendental is derived from the Latin word transcendere, which means climb over or beyond. Philosophically speaking, it is based upon a doctrine that the principles of reality are to be discovered by the study of the processes of thought, or a philosophy emphasizing the intuitive and spiritual above the empirical. I once questioned myself why Rizal is the one considered as a national hero when there's a lot of individuals who fought for the freedom of our country. But here's some reason why he is chosen. First is Rizal's unending greatness. In this subject and in the discussion earlier from all the historical overview videos about Rizal, we are aware of how great his works are, and also even after his death, his existence never faded. His face can be seen from pictures, videos, and even monuments. Second is his life and contributions are being studied around the world. Rizal is not only known in the Philippines but also around the world. Many scholars are studying and criticizing him and his work, and of course others even compliment him. Third is the power of Rizal's legacy and influence. His works and his mentality taught us so many things where it do affect the Filipino national consciousness. His existence helped the Philippines to have hope and fight for individual rights. Also, his works gives enlightenment to his readers.
In these 3 paragraphs, it means that in history, we know that Rizal's status was in the middle class, and because of his status, he had a lot of things to suffer, and yet he prevailed. Even because of the social conditions at that time, he prevailed because he was talented and skilled compared to his contemporaries or adversaries. His leadership was showcased phenomenally since he led various propaganda movements like his novels like No Limitang El Filibusterismo, and many more of his essays. His masterful skill in writing by showcasing what the propagandists wanted clearly, by being one of the Filipinos who translated the La Solidaridad that shows the social, cultural, and economical conditions in the Philippines, and the goal of the La Solidaridad to have a closer relationship between the two countries of the Philippines and the Spain. Rizal's wants and ideals never ended. His ambitions or desire took form of his long years of fighting for what was right at that time. He wanted the freedom of our ancestors back then. He wanted our country to be free from the Spanish colonizers.
Rizal was the figure of the revolutionary movement. He was a poet, novelist, ophthalmologist, historian, doctor, polemical, essayist, and moralist. He was also the first one to use the term Filipino.
He was the first Filipino as evidenced by his novels, especially Noli In this novel, Rizal pictured the Philippines as a nation, even though those who lived in it had no common name yet to refer to themselves, apart from the pejorative terms India and Mestizo that the Spanish colonizers called them. Rizal then was the first to imagine this social rule which explained why he is remembered today as the first Filipino.
Rizal's constant effort to improve himself showed how much he valued his own education. To further improve his craft, he learned other languages including German, which enabled him to translate Friedrich's scholars Wilhelm Tell into Tagalog.
To prove that the Filipino natives had a culture of their own prior to colonization and that they were not inferior to the white men, he studied Philippine history.
And finally, constantly keep himself updates on the trends in science and philosophy by reading and attending scholarly dialogues. Rizal hoped that his achievements would influence all Filipinos to build a legacy.
Ideas and philosophies. Rizal's achievements secured him a status unparalleled by any other Filipino, not in his time and at present. His greatness can be seen in the different ideas and philosophies he wanted his generation and the future generations to live by. Listed below are some of his ideas and philosophies. His social philosophy deals with man in society, influential factors in human life, racial problems, social conflict, and social justice. This also includes poverty and wealth. Social ideals, reforms, youth and greatness, history and progress, and the future Philippines. Colonies should not be abused but instead trained for self-governance. Contrary to what the Spanish thought, Rizal held the salvation was not only for the Catholic, that fasting is not a sacrifice. He did not agree with the sale of religious items, cross, medals, rosary, like. People should aim for the study of human behavior and the tendencies of being good and evil. The body of knowledge that a person should acquire includes the wisdom of humanhood developed through people's experiences in society. Education was foremost for Rizal. He believed that education is vital in national development as it frees people from ignorance. Education can save the country from domination.
The Transcendental Hero. A hero is often defined as a prominent or central personage taking admirable part in any remarkable action or event. A person of distinguished valor or enterprise in danger, and a person honored after death by public worship because of their exceptional service to mankind. As well as, legend is in many cases characterized as a conspicuous or focal personage taking commendable part in any striking activity or occasion. An individual of recognized boldness or undertaking at serious risk, and an individual respected after death by open love in light of their excellent assistance to humanity. Rizal is the epitome of everything mentioned in the definitions of a hero. In the face of danger, he was bold despite the odds. Lastly, he was honored even more after his death because of the legacies he left behind. Rizal is a Filipino hero because he embodied the qualities of a true hero and made Filipinos realize the best of what they can be despite the difficult social conditions. Rizal's struggles and triumphs inspired and ignited the Katipunan Red Revolution, making the Philippines' first independent republic in Asia. Until now, it is still what Rizal fought for that leads this generation to continue realizing his dream of a nation where every Filipino is truly free. It says that Rizal is the exemplification of everything referenced in the meaning of a legend. Notwithstanding risk, he was strong in spite of the chances. In conclusion, he was regarded much more after his demise on account of the inheritances he left behind. Rizal is a Filipino legend since he typified the characteristics of a genuine legend and caused Filipinos to understand the best of what they can be, notwithstanding the troublesome social circumstances. Rizal's struggles and wins enlightened the Katipunan joke insurgency, making the Philippines' first free republic in Asia. As of presently, it is still what Rizal battled for what drives this age to keep understanding his fantasy of a country where each Filipino is really free. Rizal's title sometimes questioned. According to the title that Rizal holds is more of a tribute to the continued restoration or acclamation of the people towards him. No law, executive order, or proclamation has been enacted or issued that officially proclaims any Filipino historical figure as a national hero. Despite the absence of an official declaration, Rizal has been a symbol of what the Filipinos lack as a race. This is ironic, though, since Rizal was in search of a true Filipino identity, which turned out to be his own self. That means Rizal's title now and again addressed, conferring the title that Rizal holds is to a greater extent a recognition for the proceeded with versation of approval of individuals towards him. No regulation, chief request, or declaration has been sanctioned or given that official announces any Filipino verifiable figure as a public legend. Regardless of the shortfall of an authority announcement, Rizal has been an image of what the Filipinos need as a race. This is amusing, however, since Rizal was looking for a genuine Filipino character, which ended up being his own self.